Thank you. Buenos días, habla español, la familia. Mucho gusto que están aquí. Channel 7, thank you for being here. We'll give the public a snapshot of what education is all about. I wish we had more of these present here today, but perhaps other things are more important. To me, they're not more important than education. And having worked during the interim, having put a budget together, having collaborated with the House Education Committee, we came to a consensus that the adequacy of what we were recommending would maintain the integrity of the school district, the independence that they talk about, to try to give them the ability to consider salary increases. And there wasn't much debate yesterday on salary increases, so I don't know where the executive stands on that. I'm hopeful that the school district will be able to have the leeway to implement those salary adjustments that we're recommending. So that also the at-risk, we were able to work the at-risk component with the House Education Committee, $12 million for the current year. And with the understanding that we'll move forward on that for the next year. I'm somewhat concerned that we had to take a party line vote yesterday with the understanding that they would give the minority more time for a consensus. This morning, their only consensus was we remain in the same position that we were yesterday. So there was no consensus. It's a stalling tactic that they're using. I hope the general public understands the importance of public education, that they will respond to our concerns. If we don't have a budget for public education, more than likely we won't have a budget at all. And if they want to go home, sine die, so be it. We got to make sure that the Republicans are put on notice, including the governor, that they're not moving forward on education, and we need to compromise. If we want accountability from the school districts, let's come together with the LESC, LFC, and the executive, the Department of Ed. Let's work together for accountability. Let's hope that the school districts can give us accountable information that we can make decisions on and help us move forward with the different school districts so that we can have that independence that they talk about, but also accountability. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And so now I believe it's time to open it up to questions from the press for our panel. Thank you.
A real quick, basic, boring note, what's the next step? What happens next with the bill for the average reader or the layman?
Well, last night the Appropriations Committee took a preliminary vote and the bill did pass. So it's still in their committee. Once they move it out, it'll be probably voted on the floor sometime this week. We have a deadline for us to move it over to the Senate so they have enough time. So we're hoping by the end of the week the budget will be in the Senate.
So Republicans have asked for an additional $25 million to be moved from above the line to below the line. Presumably you meet exactly in the middle and you split that at 12 and a half. If you move an additional 12 and a half below the line, is that something that that you would support?
Well, it doesn't reach our maintenance of effort. We would continue to be against the federal laws and the state laws on ensuring that our special education, our protected class, that need to have that unit value and the funding going through the SEG be at a level that reaches that maintenance of effort. But we certainly are open to negotiations. That's certainly what we tried to do this morning. But last night they were thinking of negotiating. This morning they came in and said, no negotiations, we want $25 million. We don't care where it comes from, but it has to go below the line. That's really not compromise. That's not coming to the table. That's not making suggestions that we can live with. We're all compromisers. House Bill 3 left House Education Committee with $148 million going above the line. I still like that much better than what we have now. But what we have now is a compromise between a lot of people. So we think this is really solid. Remember, we've increased the governor's initiatives $10 million below the line. At the same time that we're moving towards preserving class sizes and getting teachers and other educational assistants and everyone else in the community a raise that they haven't had in 5 years, making sure we put enough in insurance and fixed costs. Even at 136.5 million above the line now, it's still a pretty lean budget. It really needs more funding in all of those areas. We think it's workable, but anything more, it gets to be we're out of compliance with the U.S. Department of Education monitoring of our maintenance of effort. We're in trouble for the last few years, and the PED has taken, they're on their 3rd appeal now for the 34 million that we were short in 2011. So it's dangerous for us to not pay attention to laws that we need to follow.
I can just briefly follow up on that maintenance of effort. It's my understanding from hearing David Abbey yesterday that even this proposal remains underneath the maintenance of effort. We've been underneath the recommended maintenance of effort for several years, so why is this year different? Why is this year the year that we have to get over? Also considering the fact that the recommendation still doesn't reach that level.
Well, it reached it as it left House Education. What we have now is probably about $1 million short. That's a lot better than 10 million short, or 25 million short, or 34 million short. And we will continue to work on it. And the reason it's important is that we have money this year for the first time. We were given a waiver on maintenance of effort for 2010 because we really had no funding. Our reserves were down to nothing. We had to use the American stimulus money to plug our gaps in education, but that is not the case this year. And the reason the U.S. Department of Education said we were down 34 million in 2011 was our reserves were high and we had funding. So when we have funding, it's our responsibility to ensure that we are going to send sufficient money to the schools, not just for special education, for all students and what they need. And we have not really been doing that the last few years, mostly because of the economy.
And if you put that money below the line and you put more money below the line, you're just going to increase our vulnerability.
Representative Stewart, initially you were very much in touch with Washington, D.C. about this issue of MOA. And as we all await news, are you still in touch with them? Do you have any more information on where we stand with all this?
Well, April 8th is the next time we have a hearing, and we have what's called a judicial review on some of the ways that the Public Education Department is trying to say we should get a waiver. The judge has asked for legal briefs, and there'll be a hearing on that day, and then they'll determine when they look at the rest of our 3rd appeal on 2011. We're not talking 2012 or 2013, still back at 2011.
So where do we stand with 2012 and 2013, do you know?
Well, I think we were underfunded for the maintenance of effort in those years also. Not as much as 11 or 10, but that's just my opinion. You know, we have a process that we're working through with the U.S. Department of Education. Our Legislative Finance Committee is trying to ensure also that we reach that maintenance of effort. So we're all working towards that end. And the way the U.S. Department of Education looks at that is through our state equalization guarantee. What we put into our state equalization guarantee to ensure that we are funding everyone fairly and equally. They do not look at funding that we give to PED to do their projects. It's the funding that goes through our funding formula, spread equally according to student need around the states. That is what they look at.
And what's your sense, I mean, I know this is a basic, obvious question, what's your sense of why there was such a party line division on this?
Well, I think I don't know. I mean, what do you all think? I think the Republicans are following the governor. The governor only suggested putting $45 million into the state equalization guarantee. That is so far from reaching our maintenance of effort. It's just not, it's not legal to do that. And they're supporting her stance. We're hoping that with the funding that we've already enhanced, her programs below the line, we've enhanced, as I said, Reads to Lead, her work with A school's in need of improvement. We have additional funding for instructional materials going out of the public school capital outlay fund. We feel like we've met her halfway. We're hoping that she will start to meet our way.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today. It's my privilege to be able to be a part of this rollout of the education budget, and so thank you all very much for coming.